Discover how Solomon's miraculous wisdom can transform your life through divine revelation. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, King Solomon reigned in Israel, residing on the magnificent throne in Jerusalem, surrounded by the glory of the newly constructed temple, a beacon of peace and prosperity. The air hummed with reverence, for the king was celebrated for his unmatched wisdom and unwavering justice. The people flourished as they experienced the abiding favor of the Lord through their young sovereign, a leader who represented God's covenant with his chosen. One fateful evening, with the stars illuminating the night sky, Solomon departed from the bustling city, accompanied by a humble procession of offerings. He made his way to Gibeon, where a high place stood solemnly, an ancient site of worship for the people. Alone in the still shadows, he sought the Lord's guidance, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down upon him. As slumber overcame him, Solomon's dreams emerged as a divine portal. There, amidst the ethereal sound of celestial whispering, the voice of God reverberated powerfully, "Ask what I shall give you." Trembling with humility and awareness of his significant role, Solomon chose wisely, longing for discernment rather than wealth or power. His heart resonated with the desire for wisdom, for he understood that with divine insight, he could govern his people with righteousness. With dawn's first light, the full weight of his selfless request sank into his spirit. God, pleased with his heart's cry, bestowed upon Solomon unparalleled wisdom, insight and understanding that transcended all who had come before him. News spread throughout the kingdom like wildfire, as the bounty of the land flourished under his astute guidance, fields yielded harvests plentiful, and artisans thrived, crafting wondrous works. Yet, the profound depths of Solomon's wisdom were soon put to the ultimate test. One day, 2 women entered the judgment hall, each claiming the same infant child as her own. Their voices filled the air with cries for justice. The court hushed, tension thickening with every moment. How could this king, blessed with such wisdom, discern truth from the shadows of deceit? Solomon's brow furrowed as he devised a plan, a test shrouded in apparent cruelty. "Bring me a sword," he commanded, provoking gasps throughout the chamber. "Divide the living child in 2." The atmosphere thickened with disbelief. Yet, amidst the horror, the genuine mother, heart shattered, cried out for mercy, revealing her true love for her child. In that moment, Solomon's heart awoke to the strength of compassion. He declared her to be the true mother, cloaked in the profound insight gifted by God. With this decision, he secured a legacy that would echo through history. Yet shadows now danced at the edges of Solomon's radiant reign. The allure of alliances with foreign women whispered temptations, drawing his gaze towards their idols. Nations envied the harmony of Israel, but Solomon waged a battle within, a struggle between human ambition and divine calling. The faithful of Israel looked on, their hopes tied tightly to the promise of a wise ruler. With a nation heavy upon his shoulders, Solomon's choices lay spread before him, a path fraught with both glory and peril. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. The story now hangs in a delicate balance, an unanticipated mystery entwining anticipation and uncertainty. Will Solomon remain faithful to his covenant with YHWH, or could the very wisdom that led him could become a veil over his decisions? The answer dances precariously on the edge of divine revelation, beckoning all to seek the same wisdom Solomon received, a wisdom that bridges the gap between human folly and divine majesty. What lies ahead waits to be unveiled, drawing seekers of truth into the unfolding saga of Solomon's reign. As the sun rose upon the kingdom, its golden rays illuminated the walls of Jerusalem, and the people gathered in throngs around the temple, seeking guidance and counsel from their beloved king. Solomon, adorned in royal splendor, sat upon his throne, radiating the divine wisdom bestowed upon him. Yet, within his heart lurked the whispers of doubt. The allure of the foreign alliances loomed perilously close, their idols beckoning him to a path of compromise. In that moment of tension, a herald stepped forth, proclaiming the arrival of dignitaries from distant lands. They were drawn by tales of Solomon's unmatched wisdom, a wisdom that transcended even the ancient cradles of civilization, Egypt, Babylon, and beyond. Among them was the Queen of Sheba, a woman of great renown and stature, whose heart burned with curiosity and a desire for knowledge. As she approached, determination shone in her eyes. She arrived with treasures and riddles intended to challenge the young monarch. With an entourage at her back, the queen entered the royal palace, where the air thrummed with expectation. "King Solomon," she called, her voice ringing clear, "I have heard of your fame and the wisdom of your heart. I have come to test you with hard questions." Solomon received her with graciousness, granted her a place of honor, and prepared himself for the trials ahead. The queen presented her challenges, questions steeped in mystery and wisdom, echoing through the halls. Each answer Solomon gave was laced with profound understanding, illuminating truths hidden from those who sought knowledge without reverence. "Blessed be the Lord your God," the Queen of Sheba declared, her spirit ignited with awe, "who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Your wisdom and prosperity exceed all my expectations." Solomon, receiving her words, felt the weight of responsibility for such praise. Yet deep within, he sensed the danger entwined with admiration, a temptation veiled in glory. The two exchanged gifts as a sign of their mutual esteem. The queen bestowed gold and spices, unmatched in abundance, along with precious stones that glittered in the morning light. Solomon, in turn, gave her gifts of wisdom and the peace that only God could provide. The air around them sparkled with an exchange that reflected the bountiful love of God. Nevertheless, unknown dangers lurked in the shadows. As the days passed, Solomon's heart began to falter. The allure of alliances brought him closer to the foreign cultures that worshipped idols of wood and stone. His wisdom became a double-edged sword, sharp yet precarious, as he pondered the deep significance of his choices. Would he lead the people towards true worship, or would his heart be turned away by the very honors he received? As the eyes of the kingdom were drawn to his splendor, the tension heightened. Whispered tales of idolatry began to permeate the streets, how a king strayed from the path defined by their God. With each step, Solomon wandered further from the covenant that had bound Israel to their YHWH. But amidst the growing shadows, a prophetic voice stirred, a reminder of the promises made to David, his father. "If you turn away," the words echoed in his mind, "and forsake the commandments of the Lord your God, then your rain shall fall." The delicate dance between devotion and distraction played out before the eyes of an expectant nation, for the hearts of the people hung in the balance. Would Solomon succeed in leading them toward the fulfillment of their divine purpose, or would his reign become a cautionary tale of lost promise? And so, as Solomon stood at the crossroads of history, the question remained: what weight would his choice carry for generations yet unborn? God's divine plan unfolded, and yet it seemed enshrouded in mystery. What lay ahead awaited revelation, for the darkness of temptation sought to eclipse the light of wisdom granted to the king, a vivid reminder that the path to true glory is fraught with choices entwined in the essence of faith. As the days wore on, the sun's descent pallidly signaled the approach of twilight, filling Jerusalem with the shadows of uncertainty. Solomon sat in the grand hall, the weight of his crown now feeling as heavy as the mantle of kingship itself. His thoughts wandered through the corridors of his heart, tormented by the allure of the foreign deities that beckoned him with promises of alliances and prosperity. In his thoughts, uncertainty mingled with faith, and temptation danced dangerously at the edges of his resolve. One night, while the moonlight flickered against the polished stones of his palace, Solomon rose to seek solace in prayer. He retreated to the Holy of Holies within the temple, the sacred place where the Ark of the Covenant rested, and with trembling hands raised up in supplication, he cried out, "O Lord God of Israel, how shall I lead your people if my heart is inclined to follow after strange gods?" In that moment of fervent prayer, he felt an overwhelming presence envelop him, as if the very air pulsated with divine grace. And lo, the Lord spoke unto him, Solomon, I have heard your plea. You possess wealth and wisdom beyond measure, yet your heart wanders. Hold fast to the covenant I made with your father David, do not allow your spirit to be swayed by the idols of the nations surrounding you. For if your heart turns away, your kingdom shall face peril and strife. Solomon fell upon his face before the Lord, overwhelmed by the gravity of the warning. Clarity pierced his heart, the choice he made would echo through generations. As he arose from prayer, determination burnt anew within him. He resolved to fortify his faith and guide Israel in righteousness, for they were chosen a people set apart to worship the one true God. Meanwhile, news of Solomon's wisdom and splendor traveled farther than the kingdoms of men could comprehend. Dignitaries from various nations arrived at his court, drawn not merely by tales of riches but now by an urgent seeking of truth. Among these visitors was a learned priest from Egypt, renowned for his deep understanding of the stars and the arts of divination, who approached Solomon with a challenge. Great king, he proclaimed as he bowed low before the throne, I have come to test your discernment. For I have heard of your great wisdom, and I believe it to be unmatched. Answer me this, what is the source of true knowledge? Is it found in books, in the stars, or perhaps in the hearts of men? With a gaze that pierced through the veil of human understanding, Solomon replied, the source of true knowledge is the fear of the Lord, for the beginning of wisdom comes through reverence for him. He who seeks to know without humbling himself shall stumble in darkness, yet he who bows before the Creator shall unveil mysteries unseen. The priest marveled at Solomon's words, and as he departed, the crowds whispered in awe, recognizing the divine authority with which their king spoke. Yet in the shadows, there lingered a watchful eye, a spirit of idolatry that seeped into the hearts of men. As unrest brewed among the citizens, murmurs arose, driven by desires for the prosperity of foreign gods. The allure of the queen's unyielding wealth and the wonders of distant lands warred against the loyalty to the unchangeable God of Israel. In solitude, Solomon wrestled with his fears and burdens, yet resolute in his resolve, he would renew the covenant among his people. Come, O Israel! He called to the masses, let us return to the Lord our God, the one who delivered us from Egypt, who promised us a land flowing with milk and honey. And as the people gathered around him, a stirring began within their hearts, a reminder of their heritage, their identity woven in the promise of a God who never forsook them. Yet, unbeknownst to them, conflict loomed on the horizon, for the very oppression of idolatry whispered still among the hearts of a nation, threatening to breach the thin veil of their covenantal fidelity. As Solomon stood before his people, his heart quickened with the knowledge of trials yet to come. The time had not yet arrived for the true testing of faith, for even as he called them to unity, the lure of foreign alliances continued to dominate his kingdom. Thus, the sands of time drifted inexorably onward, and the question remained burdened in the hearts of many: could the wisdom of Solomon withstand the crushing weight of compromise, or would the very foundation of their covenant relationship with God be laid to ruin? What unforeseen chapters were to unfold in the grand narrative of God's plan for Israel, and how might the very trials they faced become the instrument of his redemptive grace? As the dawn broke over the land, Solomon woke with a sense of foreboding, a shroud of darkness weighing heavily upon his spirit. The whispers of idolatry that had crept into his kingdom felt like chains, binding the hearts of his people with an unseen force. He knew that the time had come for more than words, action was necessary, lest the seeds of discontent take root and blossom into rebellion. In the council chamber, surrounded by the elders of Israel, Solomon laid bare his heart. Brothers, we stand at a crossroads. The Lord God of our ancestors has bestowed upon us immeasurable blessings, yet we must guard against the lure of other gods. Shall we allow the glimmer of wealth and the allure of false promises to lead us down a path of ruin? The elders nodded, their faces etched with deep concern. They understood the gravity of his words, and it was with heavy hearts that they deliberated. After a prolonged silence, one elder rose. Great King, we need to renew our covenant with the Lord. Let us gather the people at the temple for a solemn assembly, that we may seek his favor and return to the paths of righteousness. With resolute agreement, Solomon commanded the call. From the furthest reaches of Israel, their cries echoed, drawing the children of God together in anticipation of a sacred moment. As the men, women, and children filled the temple courts, Solomon stood with hands raised high, calling upon the Lord. O God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, hear our cry. We repent from the ways of our forefathers who turned from you and followed after the idols of the nations. We beseech you, restore our hearts, that we may walk in your statutes. Amidst the throng, the presence of the Lord enveloped the assembly like a thick cloud, murmurs of awe gripped the hearts of the people. As the sound of Solomon's prayer ascended, a heavy stillness filled the air, and in that moment, a spark of divine glory ignited within the gathered. Then the people heard a voice, resonant with authority: You have turned to me. I will not forsake you, O Israel, for my steadfast love endures forever. Yet heed this warning, for your faith will soon be tested. Your hearts must remain vigilant, turn not to the idols that entice you. Not one heart among them could forget that echoing command, and as they stood transfixed, each sensed the weight of the responsibility resting upon their shoulders. The urgency of Solomon's plea pressed upon them, for they were called to a covenantal fidelity that could shift the course of history. Solomon, emboldened by the divine affirmation, continued, Let us cast aside the vestiges of idolatry. We must walk in the paths of our God, for our strength lies not in horses or chariots, but in the hand of the Almighty, who alone delivers and saves. As the assembly erupted into fervent cries of unity, declaring with one voice, The Lord is our God. We will serve him alone. Joy mingled with trepidation, as a promise took root amidst their hearts, a promise that would not only guard their future but ripple throughout generations. Yet, in the shadows, an insidious plot was already unfolding. The whispers of idolatry, having taken deeply rooted places within the hearts of many, began to spin a thread of dissent. The surety of God's promise stood against the uncertainty arising within the kingdom. How would Solomon navigate the perils that now threatened his reign? Would the nation stand firm against the allurements that called them away? The tapestry of God's sovereign plan, intricately woven, would soon unveil a confrontation that would test every fiber of their faith. For in the midst of their covenant renewal, questions loomed: what fathomless depths lay within God's redemptive grace, and what unforeseen trials would unveil his glory in the days ahead? And as the tumult of their voices faded, a heavy stillness enveloped the crowd. The people, filled with conviction, awaited the words of their king. Solomon, sensing the urgency in the air, took a step closer to the great altar where the fire had once consumed offerings, invoking the favor of the Most High. O Israel, he cried, we are a chosen people, set apart for his glory. Yet we find ourselves on the precipice of ruin, entangled in the snares of the very idols we have sworn to forsake. Shall we let our hearts be led astray by the allure of Baal and Ashtoreth? No. Our eyes must remain fixed on the Lord, for it is he who delivered us from Egypt, who parted the waters and led us to this land flowing with milk and honey. A murmur of agreement rippled through the multitude, yet deep within the depths of their souls, doubt lay coiled like a serpent. Solomon, perceiving the apprehension in their hearts, knelt before the Lord, beseeching him for wisdom in this hour of need. Grant me discernment, O God, to shepherd your people. Reveal to us the depth of our sin, that we may humble ourselves before you and turn from our wicked ways. Suddenly, a great wind swept through the temple courts, and the flickering flames danced wildly atop the altar. The people gasped, their eyes widening as they felt the breath of the Almighty surround them. And as the wind softened, a voice echoed once more, cutting through the silence with divine clarity. Solomon, my beloved servant, I have heard your plea. Your heart's desire to guide my people back to righteousness shall bear fruit. Behold, for I will send forth trials to test the mettle of their faith, yet I will provide you with a path through their darkness. Take heed, for the spiritual climate shall shift, and you must stand as a lighthouse amidst the storms. The assembly quaked in reverence at the weight of these words, grappling with the significance of God's promise. Would they indeed face trials? What would be required of them to pass through this crucible? Solomon rose, emboldened by the prophetic assurance bestowed upon him, and addressed the people with fervor. "Fear not the trials to come, for our God walks with us. In every testing, he refines the gold of our faith. Remember the words of the prophet Jeremiah, then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you." Jeremiah 29 verse 12. Our God is ever near, we must turn our hearts toward him. Yet even as hope surged among the people, a darkness lingered at the edges of their hearts. From among the assembly, a voice rose, a voice questioning the certainty of divine intervention. But what if our hearts are too hardened? What if we succumb to the temptations that surround us? Will we be cast aside? The crowd fell silent, uncertainty weaving through their ranks like an unwelcome fog. Solomon turned to the voice, and with tender strength replied, "The Lord our God is long-suffering and merciful. Should we return to him, his promise remains, if my people, who are called by my name, humble themselves and pray and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land." 2 Chronicles 7 verse 14. Let not fear guide you, but faith. As fervor reclaimed the hearts of the assembly, Solomon raised his staff to the heavens, proclaiming, "Let us arise and proclaim our loyalty, for the God who hears us is also the God who reigns. His plans are higher than our own, and He will make a way even where there seems to be none." Yet shadows still lingered, discontent bubbled beneath the surface, as whisperers continued to sow seeds of division. Would they remain steadfast in their commitment to the Lord? The threads of rebellion were weaving tighter, and with each passing moment, the stakes grew higher. And so, as the sun dipped low in the horizon, the people departed, hearts ablaze with resolve yet unaware of the brewing storm. In this divine tapestry, the stage was set for a confrontation that would reveal the greatness of God's plan. What trials awaited them, and how would these tribulations serve to deepen their covenant with the Almighty? The unfolding of events would soon portray the true nature of faith and the power of redemption, a reminder that even in the direst of circumstances, God's sovereign hand is ever at work. As the sun set, casting a golden hue over the city of Jerusalem, the hearts of the people were filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Solomon returned to his palace, heavy with the burden of divine responsibility. He sought the secluded places of prayer, yearning for guidance from the Lord. "O God of Israel," he lamented quietly, "how shall I lead a people so easily swayed by the whispers of darkness? Grant me strength, that I may fulfill the calling placed upon my life." In the depths of the night, as Solomon's eyes grew weary, a vision engulfed him. The heavens opened, revealing a multitude of stars like grains of sand upon the shore. Within that celestial display, he discerned the form of a great eagle soaring through the skies, its wings casting a majestic shadow over the land. In the crackling stillness of the air, the voice of the Lord emerged once more. "Solomon, you perceive but a glimpse of my sovereignty. As the eagle rises above the tumult below, so too shall I elevate your wisdom above the strife of your people. Know this, the trials which lie ahead are not merely for punishment but are a refinement, a divine forging of hearts to rise in purity. Your people will be called to a new covenant rooted in faith, and through their suffering, they shall earnestly seek my face." Awake from the vision, Solomon understood the profound significance of this revelation. He summoned the leaders of Israel to a great assembly, eager to share the insights that the Lord had granted him. The morning light reflected off the polished walls of the temple, and a sense of urgency fell upon him. "Listen, O leaders of Israel," Solomon proclaimed, his voice steady, commanding the attention of all. "The Lord has spoken. He will shape our destinies through trials, but he shall not leave us forsaken. As it is written in the book of Job, 'But he knows the way that I take, when he has tested me, I will come forth as gold,' Job 23 verse 10. This is our time to be refined, our moment to rise. With humility, we must embrace the challenges, for they will lead us to deeper understanding and communion with the Almighty." A hush fell over the crowd, breathing in the weight of his words. Shadows of doubt still flickered in their hearts, yet the flicker of faith sparked within them. One man, bold yet trembling, arose from among the assembly. O King Solomon, what assurance do we have that we will remain steadfast when trials come? Will we not falter as before? Solomon looked upon him with compassion, for he felt the struggle in the man's heart. Fear not, for our God is a fortress in our weakness. He does not call us into battle without equipping us for victory. In every trial, He provides grace sufficient for our needs. And He promises, I will never leave you nor forsake you, Hebrews 13 verse 5. We are not alone. With renewed vigor, the people resolved to prepare their hearts for what lay ahead. They gathered in worship, lifting their voices in psalms and hymns, calling upon the name of the Lord. Solomon stood before the great altar, where fire still glimmered faintly, reminding them of sacrifices once made, and the bond that united them as a covenant people. Yet amid the gathering faith, the shadows of dissent grew bolder. A subtle faction whispered among themselves, eyes flickering with doubt. Can this king truly lead us? Is his wisdom more than mere words? Will the trials he speaks of not crush our spirits? Such murmurs began to spread, threatening to unravel the threads of unity that King Solomon desperately strived to stitch together. The pace of unrest quickened, and Solomon could feel the impending storm as it stirred at the edges of hope, looming just beyond sight. The king sought solace in prayer, crying out for divine intervention. O Lord of hosts, I stand on the precipice of a choice. Guide me as I stand between the rising waves of faith and the uncertainty of rebellion. I beseech you, grant me the wisdom to navigate through this tempest. And as dawn broke, illuminating the sky with shades of crimson and gold, it marked not just the beginning of a new day, but the unfolding of a covenant renewal that would reverberate through generations. What trials awaited them on this path? Whose voices would be silenced, and whose faith would be forged in the fire? As God's sovereign plan continued to weave its intricate tapestry, the hearts of His people awaited the revelation of His purpose, a purpose that would shape not only their present but their future, as His plan began to unfold more clearly. As the rays of dawn seeped into the city, casting long shadows over the temple, Solomon gathered his advisors, urging them to prepare for the coming days of trial. The populace awaited a word from their king, an assurance to guide them. Yet even among Solomon's closest aides, unease had begun to fester. What if the unity we have found crumbles before our eyes? One advisor asked, a hint of desperation lacing his words. What of our enemies that surround us? Can a mere promise withstand the reality of swords and shields? Solomon stood before them, an embodiment of resolve. Our strength is not in the arm of flesh but in the unwavering spirit of trust in the Lord. As it is written, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God, Psalm 20 verse 7. This is our battle, and it will be fought not with weapons but with faith. Upon hearing his words, the advisors began to nod, memories of the Lord's past deliverance stirring in their hearts. The people were encouraged, and the murmur of dissent began to fade as everyone turned their focus toward the king's words of hope. They shall arise through trials, Solomon declared, raising his voice so all could hear. Come, let us prepare our hearts and seek His face. Gather the people of Israel, for we will proclaim the goodness of the Lord together. Thus, the leaders went forth to gather the assembly in the open square. The sun climbed higher, and the vibrant song of praise filled the air, a sweet symphony harmonizing with the pulse of revival. Solomon encouraged them, for I have been made wise in the presence of the Lord, let us seek His counsel together. He has promised us something beyond what we can envision, something loving and redemptive. As they assembled, a hush settled over the crowd. Solomon stepped forth, aware of both the weight of their expectations and the burden of their fears. O Israel! He proclaimed, tremble not at the sight of adversities approaching. The Lord our God has a purpose in this season. Remember, when the trials come, it is our opportunity to draw near. As our ancestors were tested in the wilderness, so too shall we emerge not just as a people, but as a covenant holy unto the Lord. As he spoke, a tumultuous wind swept through the square, and some felt it as a subtle reminder of the Spirit's movement, a sign of potent change. But within the crowd, a figure emerged, a dissenting voice. He called out, "What good is faith if our mouths are gagged with fear? Will he truly save us, or are we but pawns in his grand design?" Solomon's heart grieved for the lost among them. Even now, there is hope for the weary. As it is written, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11 verse 28. The Lord desires our hearts, not out of fear, but through love. We must rise together in faith. Those who turn aside will only find themselves wandering. Yet the shadow of doubt crept among the assembly, igniting whispers of skepticism. The faction that had quietly stirred unrest began to rally followers, their murmurs echoing with greater volume. Their rebellion loomed ever nearer, a tide resisting the current of unity that Solomon sought to establish. But as the sun ascended high, spilling its light upon the valley, the heavens seemed to reflect the heavenly struggle taking place below. Solomon sensed the hand of God was present, even amid their divisive spirit. He urged further, "Let us not dwell on fear, but draw near unto him. Stand firm in the knowledge that our trials will bring us forth like gold, purified in the fire." The people began to sway with their renewed faith, and while the whispers of dissent still echoed, the greater voice of worship began to rise, intertwining with the tension that simmered beneath the surface. In that moment, a guiding clarity gripped Solomon's heart. Yet, amid the communal assent of faith, a sudden silence fell, for a revelation pressed heavily upon his spirit. As the storm was breaching upon the horizon, he felt the weight of the coming covenant, a promise growing more profound in its magnitude. "Even I do not know the fullness of this redemption," he murmured to himself, "but who are we to shun how the Lord might choose to unfold his plan? Is it possible that in the heart of our trials lies the kernel of divine grace that will transform our people?" Thus, as the day drew closer to its zenith, the divine threads of God's purpose began to intertwine, a tapestry yet woven. Little did they know, a pivotal turning point lay ahead, where faith would be tested and redemption realized, unveiling the true essence of the covenant administered through trials and tribulations. What would become of Israel's heart, when the flames of testing loomed ever closer? As the Lord's design unfolded, a deeper revelation awaited them on the journey through the darkened valleys of uncertainty. As the sun reached its peak in the heavens, the air became thick with a sense of anticipation. Solomon, sensing the hearts of his people teetering between trust and doubt, beckoned them to draw closer. "Listen, O Israel. Our trials may be many, but the hand of the Lord shall guide us through each storm. As it is written, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you." Isaiah 43 verse 2. Across the square, eyes were wide, absorbing every word as if it were a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. A faint murmur arose, a collective stirring, as the heart of the assembly began to beat in unison once again. "Should we be afraid of those who threaten us?" he continued. "Nay. Let us gaze upon the promises of our God. He has delivered us from Egypt, he has parted the seas, and he will act again on our behalf. He declares, I know the plans I have for you, plans for hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. In our struggle, he is molding us into vessels of his glory. But amidst this resurgence of faith, the dissenting voice persisted, echoing against Solomon's declaration. What if our unity is naught but a facade? In the end, will the Lord indeed care for his chosen? Or shall we fall into the hands of our enemies, laid low by misguided trust? Solomon, his heart burdened by the weight of such skepticism, lifted his gaze to the heavens, seeking guidance. "O Lord," he prayed silently, "bestow upon me wisdom that transcends earthly understanding." The sun glinted upon the temple, illuminating the holy ground beneath him, as if in response, the Spirit of God enveloped him. In that moment, a divine clarity penetrated his heart. "Hear this," he proclaimed with renewed vigor. "The Lord does not despair. For as the potter shapes the clay, so he is remaking us. Every challenge we face is a brushstroke upon the canvas of his masterpiece. As it is written, "In all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Romans 8 verse 28. At these words, the crowd began to respond, their spirits ignited by the call of hope. Spirits broken by fear started to lift, and hands that trembled in suspicion rose in surrender. The murmuring of the dissenting group began to fade as they stood together in solidarity. "But what of our enemies?" cried one who still lingered in doubt. "Ah," Solomon replied gently, "our enemies shall see our faith and tremble. The Lord fights for those who stand firm in his name. We need not bear our swords or shields, for our reliance will be upon him who is mighty to save. As it is written, do not be afraid of them, the Lord your God himself will fight for you." Deuteronomy 3 verse 22. A wave of conviction swept through the assembly, a surge of renewed faith compelling them toward a collective prayer. They fell to their knees, voices united in supplication, invoking the name of the Lord as a roar of earnest hearts. The air vibrated with sacred sincerity as the people prayed with fervor, becoming one in spirit. And yet, even amidst this spiritual awakening, Solomon still felt the weight of an impending trial stirring on the horizon. Within him arose a divine perception, a whisper calling attention to forthcoming tribulations necessary for the sanctification of their souls. Could it be that through darkness, the true light of their covenant with God would be revealed? As the fervent prayer subsided, a hush fell over the crowd, a stillness as though the very earth awaited the next decree of heaven. In that holy silence, the Spirit of God brooded over his people, igniting a promise deeper than fear could ever fathom. The crowd, restless in zeal, awaited further instructions. What greater purpose did the Lord have for this moment? Solomon raised his hands once more. "Be prepared, for our journey ahead is laden with challenges, yet, it is there, in those trials, that he shall reveal our true identity as the holy nation of his choosing." In unison, they echoed, "Amen. Let his will be done." And as the echoes of faith faded into the wind, the shadow of uncertainty loomed large over the future. The battlegrounds of the heart were set, and the tapestry of God's sovereign design awaited to unfold in all its glory. What would be the cost of their faith? How would the sovereign hand of God display his glory in the midst of their trials? As the sun dipped low in the western sky, casting golden rays upon the assembly, Solomon felt the weight of reverence settle upon the gathered multitude. Beside him stood a faithful remnant, eyes filled with hope, yet shadows of uncertainty still loomed over their hearts. He understood that in order to lead them to the freedom of faith, he must unveil the deeper truths hidden within their trials. "Brothers and sisters," he called out, his voice echoing through the square, reaching every ear and heart, "the God we serve is a God of impossibilities. He calls us not to fear, but to acknowledge the depths of his intention amid our struggles. For it is written, 'Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds,' James 1 verse 2, for within each trial lies the seed of perseverance." Instantly, a ripple of acknowledgment spread through the crowd. Some nodded, their faith ignited by the truth that suffering could indeed yield blessings. "And let us not forget," Solomon continued, his hands gesturing toward the heavens, "that our Almighty Father uses these moments to refine us as silver is refined. It is through the fiery trials that we shall become vessels of his glory. For he will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver," Malachi 3 verse 3, "and we shall emerge as pure offerings." A profound silence enveloped the gathering, all present felt the stirring of the Spirit, a palpable sense of divine instruction wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Yet, Solomon's heart intertwined with theirs knew that not all were at peace with the unfolding of such potent truths. The dissenters, still lurking in the corners of the assembly, whispered among themselves, their skepticism thick in the air. "What then shall we say of our enemies?" Their voice rang out again, a relentless echo that filled the hearts of the wavering. "What will defend us against the sword of those who seek our downfall?" Solomon inhaled deeply, summoning the calm assurance that only God's wisdom could grant. "Ah, my friends," he began, "our enemies are but instruments in the hands of our Creator. He directs their paths even as he directs ours. The Lord has said, "No weapon that is fashioned against you shall succeed," Isaiah 54 verse 17. Embrace this truth. Our stronghold is found in him. With fervency, the multitude began to stir once more, voices rising, united in hope, as the promise of divine protection seeped into their spirits. Do you not remember our fathers? How they wandered through the wilderness, how the Lord guided them with a cloud by day and a fire by night. Solomon implored, drawing from the ancient memories of deliverance. Through their trials arose a great nation, a people marked by his presence. You are those very people, called to bear his light. The crowd leaned in a powerful echo filled the square as they began to chant back, their voices a collective symphony of praise and trust. We will trust in the Lord. He is our refuge and strength. But just as their faith thickened the atmosphere with promise, a foreboding whisper gripped Solomon's heart, a divine revelation stirring in the depths of his spirit. Prepare your hearts, he cautioned, reverberating the solemnity of his own conviction. For our perseverance shall be tested, and the refining shall be fierce. Darkness may come, yet the dawn shall be heralded by his glory. He is preparing us for something wondrous. And in that moment, the heavens seemed to hold their breath, as if awaiting an unfolding that only God could orchestrate. The air was electric with tension, the scent of impending change hanging heavily above the assembly. What new chapter awaited them? What plans held the intrigue of the Almighty in the days to unfold? Their journey was not merely about survival, but about the revelation of God's intricate designs woven together for his purpose. With a solemn nod, Solomon proclaimed, "The stages of this struggle shall reveal the profound depths of our God. Remain steadfast, for your faith is not in vain. The Almighty shall surely show us wonders beyond our comprehension. Just when we think the night has claimed our hope, he shall rise like the dawn over the horizon, casting away shadow and doubt." The crowd held its breath, caught in the divine tension, as they awaited the miraculous unfolding of God's sovereign plan. They did not yet fully understand what it meant to be molded by the hands of their Creator, but sensed that their faith was about to be tested in ways they had yet to imagine. What revelation would the night bring? In their hearts stirred a question, and they leaned in for the answers that only the Lord could provide. As day turned to night, heavy clouds loomed over Jerusalem, casting a shadow of foreboding that snaked through the hearts of the people. Solomon, aware of the weight of expectation, gathered his leaders and sought divine counsel amidst an atmosphere that felt charged with uncertainty. "O Israel," he proclaimed, "the trials we face in this hour are not for our destruction but for our refinement. Our God desires to reveal his glory through our struggles." The elders, solemn and watchful, nodded, yet their faces reflected unease. The recent murmurs of dissent became sharper in their focus, undercurrents of rebellion whispered in the corners of the assembly. But Solomon knew, in this defining moment, the Lord called him to portray unbroken confidence amidst fear. "Let us fortify our hearts in prayer," he commanded. "We shall seek the Lord to guide our steps forward, for our very lives depend on his wisdom." They gathered, reaching out to heaven for help, their voices raised in unison, pleading for the steadfastness to withstand the trials awaiting them. And, as their prayers ascended like sweet incense before the Lord, a divine peace enveloped the assembly. In that sacred space, they sensed the promise of an unseen hand orchestrating their fates. As the night deepened, Solomon stood upon the grand steps of the temple, his heart aflame with anticipation of the fresh revelation about to dawn. "Beloved people of Israel," he called aloud, the weight of throne and crown absent in his tone, "hear me. For the Lord has revealed that trials approach us like waves crashing upon the shores, yet they shall not consume us. For even amidst darkness, light beckons." A murmur of hope rippled through the crowd, and yet, there lingered those wrapped in doubt, eyes clouded with uncertainty. "How shall we rise if these waves topple us?" One voice ventured from the back. "Ah," Solomon smiled gently, "the strength does not lie in the waves but in the rock upon which we stand. Our God, he is faithful, and we must remember that before every miracle comes a moment of testing. Let us embrace our trials, holding fast to the truth that He walks with us each step of the way. Inspired by the slow dawning of resolve, the people began to recall God's past mercies, reminiscing the parting of the Red Sea, how He led their forefathers to victory. And if He did it then, Solomon continued, how much more can He do now? Encouraged by his words, the elders rallied around their king, their faith rekindling like fire upon a fading wick. Let us remember the God who delivered us. They shouted. We are His chosen people, a light set upon a hill. And, united in spirit, they raised their hands to the heavens, cries of worship echoing through the valley, intertwining within praise songs that proclaimed their unwavering trust in the Almighty. Each note rose higher, reverberating against the walls of the temple, creating a sound that reached the very throne of heaven. Yet, just as their unity swelled, hints of division flickered in the shadows. Dissenters, emboldened by their doubts, seeped closer, whispering the allure of easy paths and foreign gods. Why toil and struggle when prosperity lies in alliances? They murmured, a calculated campaign to sway hearts. But Solomon, standing firm atop the steps, perceived the danger, his spirit quickened by discernment from the Lord. Brothers and sisters, he interjected, weighing each word like gold in a balance, I tell you, true prosperity is found not in fleeting alliances, but in a steadfast relationship with the living God. He alone is our refuge and fortress. With eyes shining with sincerity, he beckoned his people closer. Are we not a people called out from darkness into His marvelous light? Have we not seen the hand of God upon us? Such idols promise convenience but lead only to bondage. He looked among the crowd, meeting skeptical eyes with unwavering compassion. Today, I implore you to choose faith, a path that steeps you in His love, forging you into vessels of promise and redemption. Fear not the challenges ahead, for our victory is sealed in our commitment to Him. As the night deepened with expectation, a great wind swirled through the assembly, validating His words, and lifting the spirits of the faithful. They cried together, voices merging in a melodious harmony of trust, the Lord is our God. In Him, we place our faith. And within the gathering thrummed the heartbeat of unwavering conviction, a spark igniting with intangible faith. Yet Solomon sensed the storm's full weight descending as deep shadows loomed ahead. The time would soon come when their collective resolve would undergo the fires of trial, the ultimate test of their faith. In that moment, the ebb and flow of history hovered, intertwined with the sovereign hand of God. The tapestry of their journey unfurled one thread at a time, each choice, each prayer, each cry resonating within heaven's corridors, reminding them all that covenant love always calls forth obedience even in the midst of uncertainty. Trust in the Lord, and He will make your paths straight, Solomon declared, anchoring the people's hearts back to promised assurance. As the dawn crested, illuminating Jerusalem with golden rays, the atmosphere crackled with divine anticipation. Trials might loom like storm clouds on the horizon, but the hearts of His people shone bright. Go forth, my people, Solomon proclaimed, unshakable and unafraid, armed with faith and fortified by the One who is ever faithful. The time of our testing shall lead us to victory. The assembly erupted in praise, weaving their voices tightly into the fabric of hope, forging an unwavering bond of faith that would carry them through every trial yet to come. In their hearts, they grasped an undeniable truth: their greatest strength lay not in the absence of tribulation but in their steadfast reliance upon the unchanging God who reigns above. And so, with the rising sun, the culmination of God's divine purpose awaited them, ready to be unveiled through the coming days. The trial that lay ahead would test every fiber of their collective being, crafting their hearts into a pure reflection of His glory. The tapestry of history, woven by the hands of the divine, beckoned for its next stitch, a moment pregnant with possibility, eager for the faithful to see the promise fulfilled through every trial. As this chapter closed, echoes of impending transformation reverberated, leaving the people with one clear call, an urgent reminder for unwavering faith amid uncertainty, for the dawn of a new revelation awaited just beyond the horizon, and they must remain steadfast in the grace that binds them as a covenant people. If you find power in this story, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm, and don't hesitate comment your reflections and how this story has impacted your faith. Share instantly this message with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. This is the moment to help uplift souls and be part of the divine mission to spread His love.